Hello again. We want to continue our work on chapters 2 and 3 in the textbook, both together, because both together help us to build simple sentences. We've been mainly talking about verbs up until now, because that is the subject of chapter 2. If you'll look on page 44 of your textbook, again, you'll recall that we were referring to the present tense, actually present indicative active, but for simplicity, let's just say the present um, present tense of several verbs. All the verbs actually that are listed on page 47 in vocabulary 2 in your textbook. They're all verbs. How do you recognize a Greek verb? Well, first of all, you have to memorize the vocabulary lists like the one on page 47. And as you do, um, you will first of all notice that the dictionary form, or the lexicon form, as we say, ends in omega. And the omega ending is the present tense, first person singular I. So actually, akuo, the first verb on page 47, if you just turn there, akuo means I write, or as I like to prefer, the progressive translation of the present tense, I am writing. Now, in English, we have to supply pronouns. I, you, he, she, it. We have to supply those to know who is writing. But in Greek, we don't. The ending omega tells us that this is the present tense, first person singular. A first person singular, if you go back to your chart on page 44, your table, the first person singular is I. Second person singular is you. Third person singular, he, she, or it, depending on the context. And the first person plural, we. The second person plural, you plural. And the third person plural, they. Now, the Greek verb already has the pronoun then within it. We say encoded in it by the ending of the verb. If I have akuo, I here. If I have akuete, you plural here, I don't need to add in Greek another pronoun. I can, and usually if I do, it is for the sake of emphasis. You yourself are hearing, for example. But we'll see that later. Right now, we just need to know that the endings that are given to us on page 45, o, es, e, omen, ete, usi, those are the 6 endings of the present tense that we need to know. If we have those 6 endings, we can add them to any verb. And we did that last time. If you remember, we'll just, let's see, go to that presentation. We added those to 6 of the verbs in the second chapter. They list on page 47. Luo, I am loosing. Aku es, you singular, are hearing. O es, a. Remember, these are diphthongs. Epsilon iota is a diphthong. So one sound, O, ace, a, lambane, he, she, it is receiving. Estiomen. Notice omen is the first person plural, we. We are eating. You plural are having. And they are finding. Heurisk is find. Heurisk usin tells me that it is they who are finding. So this is something I have to get used to because Greek is then an inflected language, we say. Well, English is not so much inflected. And I see, you see, we see, they see, but there's a little bit of inflection left over. You'll notice the third person singular in English is usually with an S, sees. He, she, it sees. I see, you see, he, she, it sees. I hear, you hear, he, she, it hears. Here I am again. So this is a concept that we really have to get used to because we will have many different paradigms. And the paradigms will usually contain the pronoun. Sometimes we'll add a prefix, which we call an augment, and change the tense back into past time. That comes later. What we need to realize right now is the endings of a Greek verb inflect, are added, and tell us who the subject is of a sentence. In fact, akouomen is a little sentence all by itself. We are hearing. Akouomen. The ending tells me it's third, first person plural. You might right here want to just make a little note in your mind to memorize this paradigm. I used to use it. I used to do it with music in my day. Would start a song, O ace a et usi, O ace a et usi. And then I would add the aorist tense, which comes later. You don't want to hear that. And I don't want to sing it either. But it was an easy way for me to remember, this is the present tense ending, this is the aorist tense ending, and I could add those to the Greek verbs, any verb, and we'll learn many more, and know, okay, who the subject is. Except one important thing we'll look at in our next session. So if we go back to that page, our first question will be, does it have an augment? And we don't have those yet. But so will be always to ask ourselves with the verb, as far as the verb is concerned, the action or the existence. What is the stem? And second question, what is the ending? What is the stem? Lu. What is the ending? Luomen. I know the stem lu, o, it means loose. So I know luomen is first person plural, means we are loosing, or simple present, we loose. And we should also note that if we look up a verb in a lexicon, in the dictionary, right now you don't need them because you have all that need in the vocabulary list and also in the back of the book, or they are also repeated, but in the appendices. But the Greek verb is put in the dictionary, the lexicon, by its first person singular. In English, we think of to loose, or to go, or to stay. We use the infinitive form in the dictionary. We don't use the infinitive form in the Greek dictionary. Sorry, I just had a cup of tea and something, and somehow it's still there. We don't use the infinitive in the Greek lexicon or the Greek dictionary. So we use the first person singular. Sometimes we even say akuo, to hear, which is not quite accurate because that's not the infinitive form. It's the first person singular, I hear, or I am hearing. But you'll hear students say, and even teachers, to hear, akuo, because it's listed in the lexicon as akuo. And the other verbs the same. And there are many Greek verbs, it's not just the ones, of course, that we have in the lexicon. So remember that if you look up a verb in the lexicon, the dictionary, that you'll see the first person singular ending I. And remember that the verb paradigm, which are the endings that we add to the stem, give us the pronoun. And if we add a pronoun like ego or ego, as you might imagine, because we still have this word in the English language, ego or ego, means I. And if we say ego luo, I lose, we are emphasizing when we add a pronoun in Greek. We don't need it. All we need is luo. I loose, I am loosing. But ego, I, ego luo, I am loosing. Meaning, or I myself am loosing. It's emphasizing the person doing it. So that's one way of emphasizing. Now let's just review briefly the page 44, using luo, luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete, luusin. Those are the 6 forms we need to know for the present tense. And they work for most verbs. There will be some exceptions. They work for most verbs in the present tense. I, you, he, she, it. Notice the third person singular can be he, masculine, feminine, or neuter, he, she, it. And then we, you, plural, and they. Again, the pronoun, really the subject of the verb, is already in the verb itself. Which means we need to just briefly mention how do we recognize sentences, simple sentences. I already know that I am following is a first person singular. And although I haven't actually had that verb yet, I am following, we know that it's going to be one word in Greek. It's going to be the verb with the ending O, omega. That alone will tell me I am following. Now, something else is going to tell us that Peter, I am following Peter, is not the subject. For one thing, if the subject is I, then the subject can't be Peter. First person singular, it can't, a verb in that with a first person singular can't have another subject like Peter. A prepositional phrase, we say a preposition of Galilee, completes, adds to the sentence. But what we need to know right now is simply in a sentence, in a Greek sentence, find the verb, I am followed, and find the subject. If we have a verb that ends in omega, present tense, then we already have the subject, I. If we have a verb that ends in the third person singular, then we might have a different subject, not he, she, or it. Peter, in that case, if it were he, she, or it is following, or he, she, or it follows, if Peter is in a certain form, then Peter would be the subject because it's third person singular, and then that can have another subject, which happens very often. And we'll look at that in the next chapter. I'm going to switch presentations at that point. Sorry, where are we? Okay. That was actually still the last presentation, and I'm going to go to part C because now we need to add something from chapter 3. Here we are. Chapter 3 introduces us not only to nouns that are proper names, like Jerusalem and Jesus, Jesus, and Peter, Petros. It also, chapter 3 introduces us to nouns, the name of something, which are generic, perhaps, or collective, other kinds of nouns, not just proper nouns. And now we come to some serious work that we have to learn. Not only does the verb inflect in the Greek language, but also the noun inflects. The noun inflects to show the use of that it has, the function, we say, that it has in the Greek New Testament. So, for example, if akouê, this is not so easy for me to write here, but oops, I'm never allowed to forget the breathing mark, even if it's a smooth one. Akouê, I see right away with the ending a, I have third person singular. He, she, or it. Now, it could be simply he, she, or it, but generally speaking, in the Greek New Testament, if we have a verb, he, she, it hears, we probably have someone who is hearing. We probably have a subject. And for example, that subject could be ha, Petros. Whoops. Not so easy from where I am to write on this whiteboard. Ha Petros akouê. Ha means the. Petros is the subject. And in this case, being the subject, it fits with the third person singular. It is not he, she, or it is hearing Peter. That would be another form. It is Peter is hearing, or simply Peter hears. So now we come to the inflection of the noun, depending on its function in the sentence, especially if we have the third person, singular or plural. If we have nouns that are singular or plural, they may be the subject. They also may be something else, which is the last part of chapter 3. But right now we're just looking at the first part of chapter 3. So you realize that we have skipped over into onto page 50, chapter 3. We want to recognize sentences. Now, there's another function that a noun can have, not just the subject. It can also be what we call the direct object. A verb can have an object. A verb can have a subject. He, she, or it, for example, or I. But not just a pronoun. It can be Peter. Peter hears. Peter looses. Peter finds. Peter eats. Or Peter is eating. Remember, I prefer the progressive present to the simple present for reasons I'll explain later. But I remember I told you Greek is a language that inflects? Verbs inflect. That is, for example, they have different endings, and the ending tells us the subject. Nouns also inflect, and the inflection also at the end of the noun tells us the function. Is it the subject of a sentence? It will be in what we will call what is called in Greek grammar the nominative case. We're going to have 5 cases, and we're going to have singular and plural. So 10 forms. Actually 8, because 2 of them will kind of drop out of sight. They won't be as important. But 8 will be important, and we'll have to know and recognize them. So, for example, if I have, let's say again, I'm using the sentence, I'm following Peter of Galilee. I am the subject, so I am following. And I find the subject, I am following, I follow. But I might find, in this case, I will find a noun in the accusative case, we say. That means it is the direct object. If you read in the textbook on page 51, word order is very important in determining. I'm reading the last paragraph on page 51. Word order is very important in determining the subject and the object of an English sentence. For example, the meaning of a sentence. The man bites the dog is quite different from the dog bites the man. This is because the subject of an English sentence is usually indicated by the fact that it comes before the verb, and man is the subject. The man bites the dog. Well, we don't usually have people biting dogs. It's the other way around, right? So it's usually the dog bites the man. And we could tell in English who is doing the action. Which is another way of saying who is the subject of the verb. We can tell it by the word order. Not in Greek. The word order can be changed in any way that the author wants, usually for the sake of emphasis. Generally, the verb comes first and then the subject and then other words. But if the author wants to emphasize something, it will generally place that word forward in the sentence, which is very helpful in reading the New Testament because we begin to realize the author is emphasizing a word perhaps by putting it in the forward position. Now, that may confuse you immediately. How do I know what the subject is? But again, remember, Greek is an inflected language. We have different endings for different nouns. And we have different endings for nouns, whether they're masculine, feminine, or neuter. And you'll notice the beginning of chapter 3, masculine, second declension nouns. I won't explain right now what second declension means. I'll just say that right now we're looking at masculine nouns. Just because a noun is masculine doesn't mean that it's necessarily a male person. Has nothing to do generally with masculine or feminine or neuter. Cities are feminine, for example, in Greek, simply because, as we said before, they're considered to be the mother of those who live in them. Seems strange, but that's the way the Greeks looked at it. In Greek, we don't tell the function of a noun in a sentence by its position. The dog bites the man. The dog is the subject. The man is the object who got bit by the dog. We tell it in Greek by the ending of the noun. And if you turn to page 52, you'll see that we have the nominative case and the accusative case. The subject of the sentence is the nominative case. The object of the sentence is in the accusative case. And we know which case it is by the ending. If we take the vocabulary on page 55, vocabulary 3.1, you'll notice we have, I believe, 8 words: adelphos, anthropos. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Anthropos. Anthropology means human being or man, not in the sense of male versus female, but person. Artos, bread. Doulos, notice the circumflex or Easter bonnet accent. Slave. It's not really ever servant. I know that he has the gloss servant. It's what slaves do, they serve, but I'm going to contend that doulos should be translated always slave. Laos, people. Logos, word, matter, reason. Can be even account for someone, an accountant keeping the books, for example. Huios, notice the hard breathing. Huios, huios. Diphthong, we, upsilon, iota, huios, we, and then the hard breathing, huios. Now, if we take those words, we can plug them into a sentence, and by changing the ending, let's go back to our presentation, we can tell what the sentence is saying, what the function of the word is in the sentence. But we need to know the ending. We need to know, for example, that logos is the nominative singular form of the word. That's the one we find in the lexicon too for nouns. Remember, verbs in an omega, but we're talking about nouns now, the names of things. Logos. But if it's the object of a sentence, I speak a word, I'm the one who's the subject, speak a word, the object, it's in the accusative case and it ends in nu, logon, not logos, but logon. So how do I know what is the subject? And well, from the verb, not from the word order, as we'll see in just a moment. We also have plurals. Logoi and logus are the plurals. So words and words, but words logus is accusative, means the subject. So I speak words. Lego, I speak. Lego, I am speaking. Continuous, I am speaking. Logus, words. Not Lego, logoi. That's incorrect. I am speaking words. No, that would be logoi would be in the nominative case, and that's the subject. But I am speaking words. Words is the object. It is what I am speaking. I'm speaking words, object of the sentence. So it has to be in the accusative case. So for each of the nouns that we have in the list on page 55, we have to realize will be 4 forms. Now we can change the word order around. The sentence will mean the same. For example, anthropos, huion, eche. Do you see that right away? Eche is, I'm going to try and get my go back. See if I can. Yeah, I forgot. I'm drawing things. I'm going to draw a circle though around this. Eche is my verb. And this verb means he, she, or it. Notice the ending, a. O is a. He, she, or it has or holds. But let's just has, or as I prefer, is having, continuous. Now, who is doing the action? Who is having? Who has here? Well, it's anthropos. Notice the ending os. And the nouns that we're learning, which are second declension masculine nouns, okay, we're going to have first declension as well, and we will have later a third declension. The nouns we learn, os means the subject, nominative case we say. A man, because we don't have an article, by the way, which would be ho anthropos. A man, anthropos, is having a son, huion. Notice the ending of the sentence, of the noun here. This tells us that anthropos is the subject. Why? Because the ending is nominative. It's the subject. This tells us that son is the object, and man is having a son. We know it because it's in the accusative case. This ending is accusative form of huios. Not huios here, but huion, so because it is the object. A man is having a son. Not a son is having a man, but a man is having a son. Now, what's important for us to remember in Greek is that the word order makes no difference. Let's see. Stop share. I'm going to go back to sharing that screen again. Ooh, where'd it go to? There we are. Okay. Not moving forward. Okay. A man has a son. If I have eche, huion, anthropos, what I need to know about Greek is that it means exactly the same thing as before. The word order does not change the meaning. Why? Because here I have, with the ending anthropos, I have the nominative singular, which is the subject. I have the accusative singular on, which is the object. So a man is having a son, or a man has a son. The word order has changed, but the meaning has not changed. The subject is the same as before, and the object, man has a son, object, is the same. Doesn't man, it doesn't mean, it doesn't change. You can move it this way. Huion eche anthropos. Still means the same. A man has a son. Probably the emphasis here is on son. It's put forward first. A man has a son. Probably what he wants to say. So this is a difficult concept that we must really grasp, and that is that in Greek, the word order does not determine what function a word plays, especially a noun plays in a sentence. It's not the word order, it's the ending, it's the case, and in the case ending, we say. And we have to learn what the cases are, the names of them, because we're going to have some more, not just two. So, and remember the punctuation marks. I just changed the sentence by adding what looks like a semicolon at the end. Eche, huion, anthropos, semicolon. That's a question mark. So the sentence has become a question. A man, does a man have a son? We have to supply the helping verb does in English with the singular. If it were plural, we wouldn't, but we have to say, does a man have a son? We can't just say, a man has a son. We can, but it's not good English. Does a man have a son is the proper way to ask the question in English. It's how we would translate this. If we use the progressive, then we can say, is a man having a son? But usually we say, does a man have a son? The other thing we need to know is that the article changes, not just the ending of the nouns. For example, ha, logos. But if the accusative, if it's the subject, I speak a word, the word, I speak, lego, ton, logon, the word. The article will change with the ending of the word. So I have to remember not only the endings of the cases, accusative, nominative and accusative, singular and plural, I have to remember the noun as well. But they are almost the same as the noun. So ha logos, ton logon, hoi logoi, tous logus. If it won't be very difficult. I've added them here for you. Now, let's see, I've got to move something out of the way because I can't see it. Let's look at the word order again here, and let's add the article. Lege ton logon anthropos. Okay, in Greek, I look for the verb first, lege. Somebody is speaking. Who is it? Well, it's third person singular, lege, not lego, I. So when I have third person singular or plural, I should look that perhaps there's a noun that goes with this. Sometimes it's he, she, or it who is speaking. Well, he and she is particular, but often there's a noun that someone else or a name of somebody who's doing the speaking. And here it is actually anthropos, because it's in the nominative case. Anthropos ends with os. And it has a subject. And so we translate who's speaking? A man is speaking the word. Why is it the word and not a word? Because ton logon. Ton is the article. And those of you from South Asia who are listening to this, you need to realize that you can't leave off articles when you translate Greek into English. The article we'll talk about later is one of the most important things that the Greeks brought into our knowledge, into language. They brought the article. And enables us to point out something, to make something definite. That does more than that, but that's one thing it does. So the man is speaking not a word, but the word. But notice a man. There's no article with anthropos. Not ho anthropos, the man, but anthropos, a man. Let's take another sentence. Lege ton logon ho anthropos. How would we translate this? Well, again, we have the third person singular is speaking, he, she, or it, but we have ho anthropos, which is nominative case, so we know it is the subject. The man is speaking the word. Ton logon is the object. If we have lege tous logos anthropos, lege, we look for the verb first. Always look for the verb first. Because I need to know, maybe it is lego, I speak. And there, we gotta look for the verb first to know who the subject is. It's third person singular, so there may be a noun in the nominative case, and there is anthropos. But this time it's a man is speaking the words, tous logos. If it were just logos without tous, it would be words. A man is speaking words, but he's speaking particular words. A man is speaking the words. Which words depends on the context, but it's particular words that he's talking about. Now we have legusi, logon, hoi anthropoi. Usi. That's not third person singular, is it? That's third person plural. But we still have to look at third person. We have to look for a noun that might be the subject, and here it is. Hoi anthropoi, plural. The men. And by the way, we generally translate anthropos as man, even though it means human being or person. In the Bible, it's usually translated by man or men. The men are speaking, legusi, or the men speak, simple present. The men are speaking logon, a word. Notice logon is accusative, singular, subject, singular, on. The men are speaking a word. And legusi, tous logos, hoi anthropoi. The men are speaking the words. Are speaking, usi, are speaking. Subject, the men. The men are speaking tous logos, the words. Let's add some more sentences. Anthropoi tous doulos heurisc usi. Now it gets a little more complicated because we're using more vocabulary, right? Doulon heurisc anthropos. Ton logon ho Christos aku Theus ho laos ehe. Now, if we were in class, I would put these on the board, and notice I've placed them with space so that you could write. You could come up to the board and write the answer underneath the English translation, but we can't do that here because we're not in class together. This is, of course, a virtual class, but translation. How do we translate the first sentence? Men are finding Euryskousi, the slaves, tous doulos. How do I know slaves? Because it's in the vocabulary on page 55, doulos, but the ending is us, and it has the article tous doulos. The men are finding the slaves, and you notice the accent mark has changed, and you probably want to know why, and I don't know. And that's why I don't teach accent rules. They're complicated. It's just the accent. Men are finding the slaves. Second sentence, doulon euriske anthropos. Don't translate a slave finds a man, because the subject is not a slave. He's not the one finding. The nominative case was with anthropos, os. Doulon is in the accusative case. It's the subject. So it is a man is finding, or a man finds, simple present, a slave. Third sentence, ton logon ha Christos aku. Christ hears the word. How do I know it's not the word hears Christ? Well, first, that doesn't make any sense, but also, ha Christos is in the nominative case, so it is the subject, especially if I have third person singular, aku hears, or is hearing. Ton logon, the object, the word. Christ is hearing the word. Maybe you're wanting to say the Christ is hearing the word, and that could be correct depending on the context. But in English, especially if Christ is a name and not a title, as it sometimes is, then we don't use the article. Don't say the Christ. We don't say the Peter or the John. Greek leaves the article with the person, the John, the Peter, the Christ. But in English, we usually don't use it. Last sentence, we know that theus is not the subject because that's an accusative plural. That must be the object of the sentence. The verb is there, eche. It needs a noun, singular noun, because it's third person singular to go with it as the subject, and we have one, the people, ha laos. The people have gods. Yes, theos is the word for God, but it can also be in the plural, gods. So the people are probably worshiping idols. The people have gods. So this is really the essence of chapters 2 through the middle of chapter 3. I hope that you've been able to understand how we translate a simple Greek sentence and the function of a subject and the object. If you're still confused, I would suggest that you go on the web and study some English grammar. What is a subject? And what is a direct object? Because we also have indirect objects. But what is the direct object, the thing that is acted upon the person? I speak a word. Yeah, I'm speaking a word. Word is the object. That will be in what's called in Greek the accusative case. And we have to learn the endings that are appropriate and go with, in this case, the masculine, nominative, and accusative cases. Now we're going to end this session, and we're going to pick up our final part of simple Greek sentences on page 56, section 3.2 of chapter 3, the second half of chapter 3. Let's see. Where am I? I can't find myself on my own computer. That's very interesting. All right, doesn't matter. Well, stop sharing. Oh, that should do it. There I am. Hi. We'll stop here, and this is the end of section C, the third section on simple Greek sentences, and we'll finish with the fourth section.